And it's called When Life Gives You. I know you want to say it. So I'm going to say it one more time because that's actually what we're talking about today. And you get to say it just so that it's finished. Are you ready? When life gives you lemons. That's right. So when life gives you lemons today is what we're talking about. Because how many of you know sometimes life gives lemons, right? And sometimes it's not what we expected. Sometimes it's not what we want. But the old saying is when life gives you lemons. And I'm also excited to tell you that we're going to give you a lemonade when you leave here today. So you can just stop by the table in the back, pick up a lemonade and take it with you. It's awesome. Also, the Missions Cafe has flavored lemonades. So you might want to stop by during the week and get a flavored lemonade as well. That's just a shameless plug right there. But when life gives you lemons, what do we do with it? And I think there's this idea that we say that all the time. Hey, when life gives you lemons, make lemonade. And the idea behind that is that when life gives you lemons, you make the best of it. That's what we hear, right? That's what we understand that to mean. When life gives you lemons, you just make lemonade out of it. You make the best with what you're given. However, when I read the Bible, I find that there's more to it than that. Because how many of you know sometimes when life gives you lemons, there's not much to work with? Sometimes it's hard to make the best out of it. And I believe that God wants us to live outside of just trying to make the best of things. And when we learn that we're doing more than living moment to moment, if that's all you do in life is you just live moment to moment, you're going to find yourself struggling with that whole making lemonade thing. You're going to find yourself struggling with the circumstances and the issues that come up in life and the problems and the people. Because how many of you know that life would be easy if it weren't for people? Pastoring would be easy if it wasn't for people. But it's kind of the point. We need people. Just as much as our vertical relationship is important, our horizontal relationship with others is important. Jesus said, love the Lord God with everything, but just as much as the first, you got to love your neighbor as yourself. That's where it gets sticky. I'm struggling to love myself sometimes, much less everybody else. And you want me to love them, but sometimes we have to realize that life is more than just a moment. Life is more than temporary happiness. Well, today I bought a boat. Well, tomorrow you're going to realize the boat costs money to keep running. What you going to do now? You sell the boat. They say that the day you buy it and the day you sell it are the two happiest days of your life. But we often do that. We try to find stuff that fulfills happiness. We try to find moments. We have children and we go, well, if I can have children, I'll be fulfilled. Guess what? Them children are going to leave you one day. It's all too real to me. I already dread it. And I know some of y'all are the ones that are like, yeah, I'm ready for them to go. Come on, Jesus, get them out of the house. I'm ready for this season and this chapter to close. Let's turn over to the next one. Let's have some grandbabies. I get it. Okay, where all my grandparents at? Y'all like them? Y'all know what I'm talking about? They tell me if you could skip the children, just have the grandbabies, it's awesome. And I'm like, I don't think that's how it works. When Jesus said, suffer the little children, I'm kind of wondering what he was trying to tell us. Beware. Beware, because sometimes having children, you're going to go through some things. Come on, somebody. But what do we do when life gives us lemons? When life comes to a place that we don't know what to do, we don't know how to handle it, it's sour, it's not what we're wanting, and we're going, man, I really, really wanted something different. What do you do when you were expecting an apple and you get a lemon? What are you doing when you wanted that orange but you got a lemon instead? Well, it's close, it's citrus. That's not what I wanted. I almost showed you a picture of a baby today. I watched this little video here recently at Fit and Bread, and I couldn't find it, but it's of these little babies, and they're trying lemons for the first time. You ever seen a baby? Come on, y'all got kids. Y'all know y'all did this to them. Mean. And every once in a while, you get that weird one. You go, yep, that's going to be the weird one because they like them. But you see them, and they put that thing in their mouth, and they're like, they make those weird little cute faces that it's adorable, and you can't help but like it. And you just keep doing it to them because you want to, and finally they're like, ah! Or you're like one of mine, who is one of those weird ones. I won't tell you which one. You can figure that out for yourself. Be careful. And they go, and then they pick it up again and do it again. It's like you didn't learn the first time. lemons aren't always what we want. And you may like lemons and you may like lemonade, but know today that when I make lemonade, I don't just squeeze the thing. I got to add some sugar to it. Because on its own, it ain't real good to me. On its own, it makes my teeth feel funny. On its own, it's bitter, it's sour, and I'm just, you know that face you make you pucker? Ugh. It's kind of how I feel about these. I thought I'd show you all this morning while I was at it. I got this gift this morning from a couple kiddos that walked in the room. If you can't tell, that's a pickle. And it says, I'm kind of a big deal. I thought that was cute. Set that back here. Kind of a big deal. But here's the deal. Y'all get it. Some of y'all catch that later. What do we do knowing that life isn't going to always be everything we thought it would be? What do you do in the moments when you're hit and you're sideswiped by something that you didn't know was going to happen? What do you do when you go and you sit in the doctor's office and they say the word that you never want to hear? They tell you it's cancer and we need to send you to oncology, to an oncologist. What do you do in that moment? What do you do when they tell you things that you don't want to hear? What do you do when life seems to just be really lifey in the moment? And you're trying to figure out, how do I just tread water? Anybody else feel like some days you just feel like they're like, come on, swim. And you're like, no, I'm just trying to stay alive over here. Sometimes life is like that. And if we're not careful, we will go under just trying to survive. But I don't believe Jesus wants us just to try to do the best with what we have. He wants us to thrive. That doesn't mean that you're not going to have had adverse circumstances. That doesn't mean you're not going to go through things. It just means that you can walk through them in confidence in the one that you put your faith in. And you can stand when everybody else is looking at you and going, what are you going to do? You're going to say, I don't know, but I do know one thing I'm going to do, and that's I'm going to put my trust and my faith in the Lord, and I'm going to walk in Him. So I love James, because if you have your Bibles in the book of James, chapter 1, James gives us a little anecdote for what to do when life gives us lemons. And he says this in the book of James, chapter 1, beginning in verse 2. He says, my brethren, count it all joy. Ouch. James, you started off wrong direction. Because how do I count it all joy? He says, count it all joy when you fall into various trials. James was a great encourager. Don't you feel so blessed today by that? Count it all joy when you fall into various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces patience. So my first thing is, James, well, how do I count it joy when I'm going through something? Because that's not the first thing that Devin wants to choose. That's not what I turn to first. I don't walk up and go, yay, it's going to be a financial struggle today. Yay, 3 people got mad at what I said Sunday and now they want to talk. That's not the normal reaction. If you do that, you're strange. We don't celebrate those moments that are uncomfortable. We don't celebrate in those moments, but he's saying, count it all joy. There is joy. Listen, joy is not happiness. Joy is not an emotional thing that we feel. Joy is not built upon our emotions. Joy does not depend on happiness. You can be sad and have joy. You can be discouraged but still have joy. You can go through all kinds of emotions, but there still be joy, because it's not dependent upon those things unless you make it dependent upon those things. See, so many times we get caught up and we're trying to live from that moment to that moment, from thing to thing, from person to person, relationship to relationship. And when things are going good and everything's the way we're expecting it to be, it's wonderful. We would say, oh, this is joyous. But what happens when everything changes? When all of a sudden the current begins to move in a different direction and you're not where you wanted to be yet? What do you do in those moments? He says, count it as joy. Count it all joy when you fall into various trials. Why? Because knowing that the testing of your faith produces patience. Now listen, somebody said one time, don't pray for patience. How many heard that? Honey, if I need some patience, Lord, you better give it to me because I ain't going to hell over a lack of patience. But patience may not be what you're thinking it means, because he says that the testing of your faith produces patience. Listen, Jesus said this. He said that the ones who are going to make it are the ones who endure to the end. So this word that we're reading as patience is not just talking about being able to wait. The word is actually saying endurance. It's those who can endure. So Jesus said, it's those who endure to the end. Are we willing to run a race of endurance? And that when we know that although, yes, you're going to go through trials, you're going to go through stuff, you're going to have stuff, but when you are willing to endure it, you can live in a place of joy. You can live in a place of confidence, because I have not put my faith in the instantaneous or the stuff that's tangible right now. My faith is in something greater than that. And I don't have to depend on moment to moment or circumstance to circumstance, or whether I can pay the bills or not this week. I know the God in whom I believe. And as long as I'm walking in obedience to Him, as long as I'm trying to live righteous before Him, that He says He'll take care of the things. So I can live in joy knowing that my name is written down in the book of life. That though He may slay me, though I may go through things, though I live in this world and there's stuff going on, that there's something greater. And that He's not going to leave me or forsake me. That's a promise He gave us. He says, I will not leave or forsake you. But He will walk with you. That means, yes, you're going to walk through the stuff. You're going to walk through the fires. You're going to walk through the trials. You're going to walk through the tests. But that when we do it, it helps us so that we can endure. And what I've learned in my life is that there's been moments that I went through something and I did not know that God was just helping me to build up my endurance. I think back to a few years ago. You could tell I hadn't kept it up. But a few years ago, I was training to ride in a race on a bicycle. And James would do the goofiest things. We'd go ride stuff and I'd be like, this is silly. What is this? It was winter and we couldn't ride because the streets were icy. And he's like, let's go down to the gym and ride on this little cycle here. And I'm thinking, this is foolishness. He's like, no. He said, you need to sit in that saddle for a little while. Get used to just pedaling and sitting in the saddle. And I'm going, this does not feel good. This is not comfortable. I ain't going nowhere. Devin does not like this. This is like what they say, that insanity is doing the same thing over and over and don't get a different result. That's what sitting on that cycle in that gym felt like. But what I didn't know is he was helping me to build endurance. Can I tell you that the day of the race, Devin had he was a little bit intimidated. He was a little bit concerned because Devin had not ridden 64 miles or whatever it was, 100K. I'd never ridden that much. But James said, and I think maybe he was a little nervous too because we didn't get to put in the time we wanted to. But here's the thing. He said, if we can just get this far, you'll be able to do it. If you can just learn to, I could go and we could ride out over here, out by Helping Hands or whatever you want to call it, McCall County Resource Center. We could go all the way out there, come back, and it's like a 10-mile loop, and we could do that in like 45 minutes. And I thought that seemed like forever when you're pedaling it. But what I didn't know is that endurance comes by just saying, I'm going to sit in and go through the uncomfortable things and keep doing the things so that one of these days when the time comes, I'm going to realize that when the trial's even harder. And let me tell you, there was a couple moments that Devin was thinking we need to give it. We stopped one last time, and somebody else, they'd gotten up a little ahead of us because I was pedaling. Everybody else, all them losers behind me were following behind me trying to draft me. They're like, let's get behind the big guy. It'd be easier. He'll block the wind. Thanks. And I'm pedaling away, and the two people who were going to win, whatever you want to call it, they got up in front of us, and they pulled off, and they thought, we thought you might need another stop. And I'm like, if I stop now, I won't finish. And we just kept pedaling. And what I found is that when you're willing to keep going, and you're willing to practice, that when the moment comes that the greater tests come, the greater things happen in life, those greater trials, those greater things, that you will be able to withstand. You didn't know that what God is doing is preparing you for the next thing that you're going to go through. But let me tell you, the victory, when I pulled in and everybody was shouting, Devin, Devin. There was people there I didn't even know. They didn't even know who Devin was. They just seen this giant riding in on a bicycle. They didn't even know why they was cheering. But they're going, Devin, let me tell you, that was a sweet moment. I look back sometimes and see this video of James at the very end, and it's just a moment that feels so good, not realizing what I was actually doing. Can I tell you that when we're willing to go through the things, and do the things, that it's producing endurance in us, and that we can live in a place of joy. We don't have to let those things pull us back. We don't have to let, yes, it's hard. Yes, sometimes things are rough. Sometimes, but listen, I don't depend upon my own strength. In my weakness, his strength. And in order for his strength to be what it needs to be, I have to find my weakness and know that, God, I can't do this on my own. I need you. And that's exactly where he wants us so many times, is that we stop depending on our own strength and we say, God, I need your strength. Why? Because the joy of the Lord is our strength. Not my own joy, not joy that's dependent upon the circumstances around me, but the joy of knowing that I am complete in him. And that when I couldn't do it, he did. And that he already sees my tomorrow. He already sees the way out of whatever it is you're going through. He already knows your next week. He knows your next month. He knows the end from the beginning. You serve a God who is able this morning. And you can trust in him. He says, but let patience have its perfect work, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking nothing. That sounds backwards. But let patience, let endurance have its perfect work, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking nothing. That sounds like that preparation. That sounds just like what I was talking about in those moments that when we're going, listen, I know that I'm having to do this endurance right now. I know I'm having to put in the work right now, but know that when I'm doing that it's perfecting me, it's preparing me, it's making me into what I need to be so I can walk in the calling that God has placed upon my life. You don't know who you're going to encounter, and you're going to see what they're doing. You're going to say, listen, I know where you are because I've been there before. Let me tell you, God is faithful. Don't give up now. Don't quit right now, because I have seen where you are, but I can tell you that God brought me from that place and put me over here. He set my feet on a solid rock, and I can stand telling you today that God is faithful. Sometimes what we're doing, we don't realize that God is doing something so that we can be who he's called us to be. He says, if any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask of God, who gives to all liberally and without reproach, and it will be given to him. I'm thankful that we have a God who gives liberally. He ain't stingy. Listen, some of y'all look around and go, well, why is he blessing that person more? Do you want to go walk through what they're walking through? Well, it's better than what I'm walking. Listen, the grass is always greener on the other side, but you don't know what they've been walking through. You ain't been wearing their moccasins. Some of y'all know what I'm talking about. You may not want to walk the mile that they've been walking in order to live in that place. And God doesn't look at them and say, well, I think I'll bless them, but I don't want to bless you. That's foolish. But maybe they come to a place where they say, God, I'm going to believe, I'm going to trust, I'm going to do, and they begin to surrender and be obedient to him, and God will bless. Does that mean that you're never going to walk through something? No. Does that mean you're not going to go through trials? No. But Paul said you can count it joy when you do, because you know that God is at work in your life. He says, but let him ask in faith with no doubting, for he who doubts is like a wave of the sea driven and tossed by the wind. For let not that man suppose that he will receive anything from the Lord. He is a double-minded man, unstable in all his ways. See, what we do oftentimes is we look and we go, God, do you see this circumstance I'm in? Do you see the pain I'm having? Do you see? And we begin to pray for all of those things, and we're missing it sometimes. Sometimes there's such a greater prayer that we could be praying, but in that moment, we're being selfish and we're going, God, don't you see what I'm going through? Don't you? And we begin to question him. Instead of just praying, God, I don't know why what's going on in my life's going on, but God, help me to be faithful and endure in this season, because I know that if I can just be faithful, that though this may feel hard, though this may be tough, that if I can just be faithful. I remember one time, Jeremy Campbell, some of you know him, he was one of our worship pastors for a season before I came, and he was praying, and he was asking God to heal something. And he was earnestly praying and saying, God, heal this, God, heal this, God, heal this. And one day, someone came to him and said, you know, the greater prayer may be, God, help me to endure. And when he began to pray that, it began to change things in his lives. It began to change the way he's seen things. And then when he least expected it, God stepped in and moved in that situation, because he was willing to say, God, whatever happens, I just want to be faithful. God, when I get lemons from life, I'm going to do more than just make lemonade. I'm going to trust you that that lemon has a purpose in my life. I'm not just going to try to make the best of the situation. I'm going to live in confidence. I choose joy because I know where my help comes from. I know in whom I have believed. That's what Paul said. I know in whom I have believed. If you skip on down just a little bit and you move to verse 12, it says this: blessed is the man who endures temptation. Blessed is the man who sees it through, who doesn't give in before they're supposed to, who doesn't give up. But the one who says, you know what? I know that I could serve myself. I know that this would feel better to my flesh. But right now, I'm just going to be faithful and do what God has called me to do. It says, for when he has been approved, he will receive the crown of life, which is the Lord has promised to those who love him. That doesn't say they're going to get out of the temporary things. It didn't say he's going to remove all the problems of this world out of your life. He said, but that person who will faithfully endure, when they have proved, he says that you will receive the crown of life. What greater gift are we working for? What thing are we living for that's greater than that? God, give me temporary relief. No, God, give me what I don't deserve today, which is that crown of life in the end. And he says that he's promised it to those who love him. How do you know if somebody loves you? If they say one thing but do another, do you still think that they fully love you? Are you still convinced of their love? If they say they love you but everything else they do says something else, do you not question that love? Do you not begin to question the motives? And I wonder sometimes when we give God lip service and say, God, I love you, but then we do everything else that's not saying, God, I love you, what does that say to that same God that we say and profess our love to? Let me put it this way. Women, if your husband said he loved you, but he beat you every day, you might begin to question that love. I'd hope so. Men, if your wife said, I love you, but every day you come home, she took her flip-flop off and just beat you to death with it, you start saying, this love hurts. And you start saying, man, something's got to be different. And I wonder how many times we say, God, I love you, but we go and we do things that we know do not show our love for him. They don't show the confidence. See, we have confidence, Ashley and I, that we love one another because I see what she does, the sacrifice she makes for me. What she does, her actions show me that she loves me more than her words. And I try to do the same for her so that she knows that I don't just say I love you, but I want to prove that I love you through what I do. And I wonder sometimes, do we just tell God we love him, but we don't prove it? What do they say? The proof is in the pudding. What's your pudding taste like today? Because our pudding may taste like lemons. It may be sour. Are we sure that we're following him, being obedient to him, walking in our faith each and every day? Not our faith in itself, not what we've chosen to believe, but what he said. This. Are we walking in this each and every day, knowing that he's faithful and his word does not return void? We have to take both sides of it, rightly divided. Just as much as we get to believe and we get to shout for the good things, we also have to go, but I will live in obedience. I will walk in righteousness before a holy God because I want him to know I love him. Then he says this, he says, let no one say when he is tempted, I am tempted by God. For God cannot be tempted by evil, nor does he himself tempt anyone. So he's saying, don't say, well, I guess the Lord's just trying. No. That doesn't mean that God doesn't allow you to go. Listen, I know because we go, well, what about Abraham? God will ask you to be obedient, and you have to make a choice. Will we walk in obedience? But God's not going to tempt you with evil. So don't look and go, well, I guess God's testing me to do this bad thing over here. No, that's not how God works. We're drawn away by our own selfishness, our own lust of our own flesh. And we have to choose, will I fulfill that or will I fulfill the plan that God has for my life? God made you to be good. He looked at man when he made him and woman and he said, oh, that's so good. And when we choose to walk in the light and the love of Jesus Christ, when we choose to walk in his righteousness, it changes who we are. We begin to love the things of light more than we love the things of darkness. But if we're not trying to, or if we're so caught up in other things and all the things going around us, we begin to walk in things that he never wanted us to walk in. And he tells us that, he says, but each one is tempted when he is drawn away by his own desires and enticed. And then when desire has conceived, it gives birth to sin. And sin, when it is full grown, brings forth death. Great sermon, Pastor Devin. Y'all can play some music back there. I'm going to close. Should just leave you there. Be like, come back next week for the anecdote. But here's the thing. That doesn't sound good. I don't know about you, but I'm not signing up for the death thing. And yet I already have. And so have you. Not only did you sign up for it, we've lived in it. You've willingly participated in it. Because in the moment, it doesn't feel like death. It's what Adam and Eve did. They're like, well, I guess I didn't die. But they didn't know. And sometimes we live in that place. And we that's what they say, ignorance is bliss, right? Until you're dead spiritually. Until you get into that eternal death that we call hell. Even more so than me, listen, hell, that's a temporary thing. That's just to destroy the enemy. That's just to destroy Satan and all those who fell with him. That's for. It's not even built for us. But the worst part of it is that one of these days, those who refuse him, it's not just death. It's complete outer darkness, existing completely away from a holy and loving God whose presence you walk in right now. That's worse. And that's not what God wants for us. That's not what he wants, but it requires us. See, sometimes we buy into the lemons. I bought lemons this week. And I don't know how to tell if a lemon's a good lemon or bad. There are people who checking out, they're touching them and doing, I'm like, crazy people. They smelling them. I'm like, y'all get y'all nose away. I don't want to come pick up some lemon you put by your nose. We buy into it. And then we wonder why it's sour. And we wonder why it is what it, well, because you got what you bought. But Jesus said this. He said, the enemy comes to steal, kill, and destroy. That's his plan. That's his purpose for your life. Did you know the enemy has a purpose for your life? But the beauty of it is that God has a purpose for your life. And it's greater than the purpose of the enemy. And you have a choice today because he says, but I have come that you may have life and have it more abundantly. Listen, it's just good enough for me that he gave me life, that he brought me back, that I've been raised to life with Christ. But he says, I have come that you can have a more abundant life. Yes, you're going to go through things. Yes, there's going to be struggles, but when you choose to put your faith in me, you can walk in a place knowing that I have life and it's the greatest thing that he could give me. Not just this temporary fleshly life. I'm talking about eternal life. I'm not living for what I can accomplish here and now. Yes, I want to do everything that God has for me to do in this moment, in this temporary flesh that I live in. But I know that when I say bye to this world and to this flesh, that I'm going to step into immortality. That I'm going to step into an eternity. And what I have chosen to do with right now matters to what happens then. And so my joy is that Jesus said, I'm going to prepare a place for you. And that if I go to prepare a place for you, then I'm going to come back and I'm going to take you to be with me in that place. And so I have joy beyond this moment, beyond the discomfort of today. knowing that there's more to it and that God is working something out in my life. I've shared this story before about the lemon plant that we planted at my mom and dad's house that they were living in. They were living in a church parsonage in Conroe, Texas. I don't know that Conroe, Texas is the best place to grow lemons. But it's a tree. And it starts out very small, but they'll start growing pretty quickly. And I thought, man, this could be awesome. We're going to have some lemons. And every time we come together at Thanksgiving and Christmas, we'd eat these big old meals. And I thought, man, how cool would it be to go? We ate something we grew. And I was so dumb. I should have known I don't grow things very well. I can kill plants better than anybody I know. And so we planted this lemon tree that we'd gotten. And I was so excited that the next Thanksgiving I was going to have lemons. It sounds almost counterintuitive to be excited about a lemon. And we grew and nothing happened. Plant looked great. Lemons, 0. Next year rolled around. Some little buds coming. I thought, oh, we're going to have lemons this year. Guess what? No. And at that point, it would seem like this is foolishness. This lemon tree ain't no good. I felt like being Jesus and be like, curse you, lemon tree. See if it'd die. I might be better at that. Come on, y'all. Act like you're holier than me. I've had some people that I felt like that. Y'all don't act like you're holier than me. You know you got some people that you have to have extra grace with. And so we just kept watering it. We kept doing a thing. And I'd kind of lost any hope that it would ever produce anything. But we kept enduring and kept doing the things. And I'll never forget when Dad called me one day and said, son, we got a lemon on that tree. Just one. But we had a lemon on that tree. And you know what? We cut that lemon open and we got ready to make our tea. And it was the most sour and awful lemon I'd ever had in my life. I thought all that work, all that preparation, all that thing. And I thought for nothing. But you know what? We kept on and kept going. And I found out recently that lemon tree's still there. And it produces lemons all the time. And they're sweet and they're good. And I didn't get to reap all of the fruit. I didn't get to reap all the harvest, but I get to participate. And I find joy in knowing that I've got to be a blessing to somebody else. I found joy that even though it wasn't always what I expected, always what I wanted, that just because you're faithful, just because you keep going, God is faithful. Remember the story I told you at the beginning? Little did I know that just by connecting with someone and helping them be married together, that would be the door that God would use to begin to speak into their life. I was just doing the pastor thing. I was just being myself and loving people. And I didn't realize that when you're just faithful, sometimes you don't know, sometimes you don't see. Sometimes I didn't even get to reap the harvest, but the harvest came. And it was reaped. Why? Because we're faithful. So you can live beyond just making the best of things. You can go beyond just making the best of bad situations when we choose to walk in faithfulness to Him, when we choose to trust Him, that even though you may be going through a season that's tough right now, anybody else going through a tough season right now, can you just be honest before the Lord? Some of y'all are like, I'm afraid to raise my hand. And if you ain't, honey, it will come when it comes. It rains on the just and the unjust. Enjoy the sunshine. But know that God will be faithful. If you just say, I'm going to keep walking, I'm going to keep enduring, it's uncomfortable, I don't like it, this seat hurts after you sit on it and pedal for so long, it ain't good, I don't know how I'm going to last that long, and then the next thing you know, you're going to be pulling in and everybody's going to be going, woo, good job, because you've been faithful to endure.